All right, welcome to our lesson on percent proportions. Today is going to build directly off of what we've been doing in our proportion and ratio unit, now though with the application of percents. All right, so in percent proportions, basically what we're saying is one ratio compares a part of a quantity to the whole quantity, and that the other part of the proportion is a ratio showing the percent compared to 100. Now, there's different ways that we can do this, but typically they kind of fall into two different type of problems. One is you have something like in these first couple of examples where you see the words is and of. Generally, when we look at this, the number that's next to the is the part. The part, or the one that's next to of, is the whole. And it's always going to be the percent compared to 100 because percents are always out of 100. The other way you can look at it is you're always comparing a part of a whole, and percents are always a part compared to 100. So let's look at just a couple of examples, and then we'll move on to the second page of our notes, which has some word problem applications, and we'll look at those as well. So number one, 18 is what percent of 40? Since we know it's asking what percent, we know that the x is going to be over 100. And now here's where that is versus of part. So since it says 18 is a part of 40, so 40 is going to be our whole. And now we can just use our cross products and solve like we've done before. So 18 times 100 has to equal 40x, so 18 times 100 is going to be 1800, and then we'd end up dividing by 40, and 1800 divided by 40 is 45, so x is equal to 45, and in this case, since it's the percentage, our answer would be 45%. All right. So since number two is a lot like is a little bit different, why don't you pause the video and try to set that one up on your own and see how you do. All right, once again, we're asking what percent, so we know it's going to be x over 100 equals, now here we have to be careful because a lot of times the misconception is that it's always the smaller number compared to the bigger number. But because it's saying what percent of 75, 75 is our whole because it's next to that of. So it's going to be 75 and 80 goes on the top. So what this essentially means is that our percentage needs to be greater than 100 because our value is greater than 1. Now we do our cross product. So 75x is equal to 80 times 100. 75x is equal to 8,000 divided by 75. X is equal to 106.6. But once again, we're looking at for that percentage, so it's 106.6%. It's like 106.6 repeating. And then just another example, but this time with the percentage. So since it's saying 30%, we're going to put 30% over 100, and then because it's asking what is 30% of 15, the of 15 means that's our whole, so that's going to go on the bottom. So now it's 30 times 15 is equal to 100x. 30 times 15 is 450 equals 100x. Divide both sides by 100, so that becomes, or x equals 4.5. And in this case, it's not a percent because we had the percent here, so our answer would just be 4.5. Now let's take a look at a couple of word problems, just so we have an example of how this looks in a more like real life type of situation, or a word problem situation. So a book collector has 425 books, 56% of which were published prior to 1900. How many books were published prior to 1900? All right, so we're going to identify what numbers we have. So we have the 56%, we have 425 books, and then we also have this 1900. And we're going to talk about which of those numbers are ones we're going to use. Well, the percent we know we're going to use, so it's going to be 56% out of 100. And now we're going to look at that 425 and 1900. Now, the 1900 actually is just referring to when the books were published, so we're not going to use that information. And since it's asking how many books were published prior to 1900, it's talking about the part because they're talking, the 56 is describing what percentage were published before 1900. So the 425 is the total number of books the book collector has. So that's going to be the bottom part of our proportion. And now we're just going to do our cross products. So 56 times 425 has to equal 100x. So if I do 56 times 425, I get 23,800 equals 100x. So now I need to divide by 100. So our oops, not 280. It's going to be 238 is equal to x. So in this case, it'd be 238 books were published before 1900. All right. 12 of the 28 dogs at the shelter are purebred. What percent of the dogs are purebred? So I want you to pause the video and set this one up and see how you do. All right, so since it says 12 of the 28 dogs, we know it's 12 out of 28, and it's asking for the percent, so it's going to be x out of 100. So we have 12 times 100 is equal to 28x. So 1200 is 28x. We're going to divide by 28 again. And then 1200 divided by 28 ends up being 42.8 is our x. And since it's asking what percent, our answer is going to be 48.2%.